process.
Yes.
Are you aware of communication that staff had directly with the new owners between December 17th and the February decision?
One of those emails is Tim and Sally Fagan's reaching back out to Sandy at the start of February saying, Sandy, please help. Any further word? Sandy saying, we've not met yet. I think we're going to meet next week. And then again, an outreach saying, Sandy, have you met? And Sandy responding, yes, we met last week. And the boards or the committees responded.
And then, were you involved in all of the communications between staff and the new owners?
No,
Okay.
when the new business owners purchased, December 22nd, they were the owners, and we, as landlords, tried to empower them with autonomy to build the relationship with Sandy Cross, Joe Hurd, Jim Gould, and the community. I know for helping support their financial initiatives with redoing the fence, redoing the decking, fencing on the waste receptacle, dumpster space, we've paid that in tenant allowances. And so I know they've been working with Ken Miller, who we then have paid. And so I know of that interface with Jim Gould and Sandy Cross to get permits for those different projects, but that's all relayed to me by Sally Fagan's, Tim Fagan's.
Okay. And then, the Tommy's Blue, you keep referencing the Tommy's Blue your dad originally painted, the market. And when did your dad originally paint the market Tommy's Blue?
95, I believe.
Okay. And do you know when the ordinance, the paint color ordinance standard came in for duck?
Thanks to Sandy, she was very helpful. I believe in the summary, the report that's in there, it says 2004.
Okay.
So I agree fully. It's moot whether it was that color before or not. It went to brown. We are just trying to evidence there was no indifference or,
Oh, I understand.
yeah,
I
it wasn't
understand.
willy-nilly. Why are you painting
Just
it
a
this
random blue.
scarce color?
I understand.
No, there was other
Okay.
sentimental reasons.
Those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
Let me pass these emails down. I don't have
Yep. And does anybody on the board have any further questions?
I do have one further question, if I may. So you've raised, I believe, a point of law having to do with North Carolina law and aesthetics.
Yeah.
And our potential ability to rule or not rule on that issue. And I'd like to, if that is in fact the case, and I have no idea whether it is or it isn't, I think that would be germane to this discussion we're having here today.
I think that what you'll end up hearing is you've got an attorney representing the town, Ms. Womble, and you've got an attorney representing Mr. Brooks, Mr. Rother. Did I get it right that time? And they're both going to have an opportunity to do closing arguments. And at that point, they can both tell you what they think the law is, and you'll get an opportunity to decide which one of them you agree with.
You know,
Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Brooks?
Duck is a small town.
Yeah,
The business area is a small area.
correct.
And the desire for the town is to have it be consistent. Paint colors shall be low reflective, subtle, neutral, or earth tone. What's confusing about that? Anything?
You're not addressing what we put in our appeal, Mr. Sadler, disjunctive or related.
Just because the speed limit was 55, been dropped to 35, you can't go 55 anymore. Things change.
That's correct. We think we still comply with the language that's in the ordinance.
It doesn't look like it to me.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Just because it's the color of the sky sometimes, it's the color of the ocean sometimes, doesn't mean it's corresponds with this. So that's my opinion.
Well, I think I respect your opinion. I very much think that that's valid. But please lend equal weight to the full language of the ordinance.
I understand.
All right, thank you. That's all I can ask.
Mr. Rother, and just nobody else on the board, any more questions? I didn't see any. Mr. Rother, you have any redirect, any last questions? I'm going to entertain the public first. And Ms. Womble, I'm assuming you're done with Mr. Brooks as well.
I,
I would just ask that we admit the exhibits that we provided, which I believe were C through G, and A through B were part of the staff report.
Yep. Do you have any objection to that? And Mr. Vice Chair, I would recommend that you admit those into evidence. Okay. So is that the end of your evidence, Mr. Rother? Okay. So if any members of the general public would like to provide evidence in this hearing, please raise your hand, and I will call on you in turn. And when I call on you, please step forward to the podium, provide your name and address and your testimony. And recall that you must be sworn to testify, that you are testifying under oath or affirmation, and that you will be subject to being cross-examined by the parties or their attorneys, in this case, their attorneys. And the board may ask you questions as well. This isn't meant to be a venting session. Rather, we need you to provide factual evidence that's relevant and material to the issues that are being considered today by the board. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Mr. Braithwaite, you may approach the podium.
How y'all doing today? My name's Jim Braithwaite. I'm the property to the north of Tommy's and to the west of Tommy's and to the south of Tommy's. And I remember back in the day when it was that color. I also know that Jay was trying to pay tribute to his dad and go back to the roots how it originally was. I went to a meeting the other night. People were applying to the planning board, and they were going about the history of duck. They want to pay tribute to the history of duck and also keep it going forward in the future. Well, that's a big part of the history of duck. It was that color, not from the very beginning, but pretty close to the beginning. Like I mentioned to Jay, if you're looking at the building, it's a two-story building. Most of it's just roof. You could almost argue that it's an accent feature on the cupola and the dormers. You don't see it because my hedge blocks it out coming north, the dumpster blocks it out, and then the walk-in box. So it's just a very thin line of blue coming from the other end. I've got some Russian olives that block it out, some crepe myrtles. Crepe myrtles aren't even blooming right now, so you can't really see it there. And the front's glass. I mean, I've certainly tried to, what I have up here in Duck, develop it in a tasteful way and kind of create an image that I think the tourists like, with my waterfront shops and also with another shopping center. And I don't think this is out of keeping with that. It's certainly not pink, it's not lime green, it's not purple, which, would I be opposed to that? Absolutely, I think anybody would, but I don't feel this color is, it's like I say, Jay's mentioned before, it's reoccurring. The sky's blue most of the time, the water's blue. I mean, it's probably the most reoccurring color up here, certainly more reoccurring than beige or some of the other colors, and there's so many different blues. How do you pick which one's good, which one's not? I mean, I went to the paint store today, picked blues, and this is one manufacturer. All these different blues. I mean, how do you say one's worse than the other? I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, how could you pick one? That's the actual color right there, that color. But one's certainly not any worse than the other. I mean, I've got a lot of money invested in duck. I certainly want it to be tasteful and well done, but I feel like figuring out some of these rules, like figuring out the fishing season. It's in season now, it's not in season. It's not big enough, it's too big. It's hard to figure out if you don't know. Most people don't know the rules exist. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. I've been here for 50-some years. I think it's in keeping with the area. I know people said, well, it doesn't matter if it's going to fade or not. Well, it's going to fade. Anybody seen a blue building, gray, they fade. I mean, 2 or 3 years from now, that thing will be that color blue. And then somebody be complaining, we don't really like that color blue. I mean, that's just the way it works. I mean, I'm fine with it, and I think he's in keeping, paying tribute to his dad and his family. And that's all I have to say.
Hold on just a second, Mr. Braithwaite. Mr. Braithwaite.
Yes.
Let's make sure nobody has any questions for you. Mr. Rother, no questions. Ms. Womble, do you have any questions?
no questions, thank you.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Braithwaite?
No.
Not seeing any questions. Thank you, Mr. Braithwaite. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Yes, ma'am. And were you sworn earlier? Okay, thank you.
My question is,
Ma'am, would you please state your full name and your address?
Beverly Perkins, 107 Shipswatch Drive.
can't understand her, I'm sorry.
Beverly Perkins, 107 Shipswatch Drive. Okay. I drove by the tomato patch the other day, and I noticed the colors that they have on their building. And I wondered if they were given the same scrutiny that Tommy's Market has been. I mean, it's a blue, it's a pinkish orange, it's out of the normal colors of buildings. And I just was concerned. I hope they had to follow the same approval process. And